Now, one of my favorite discussions I've had on Twitter was with another Sistas fan in regards to seasons 1 and 2, because you've heard me speak on this a lot over the past couple of weeks about how the episodes 17 and 18 of season 6 have done an excellent job having fans talking about non-Zatima characters for a change. Like we're talking about Gary this week. Last week we were talking about Sabrina, but then also this week we've been talking Andy and Danny as well. But it's also meant that we had to go back to like season 1 to rewatch episodes, pay attention to different clues. And let's be real here, we're talking like 2019, early 2020. A lot of these things may have been forgotten and slipped through the cracks. And I love the fact, and I am humbled that a lot of you all consider me to be like the Sisters expert and whatnot. But I have to admit, there were things I even forgot happened in the show. Like, for example, I forgot all about the fact that Gary proposed to Andy in season 1. And then when she turned him down, he gave that same ring to Jasmine, which really reminded me of what we saw last season when Preston proposed to Danny. She rejected him, and then at the beginning of season 6, he gave that same ring to Mindy. So when it boils down to it, the conversation with one of the other fans turned into well, season 1 was my favorite. And I'm like, well, season 1 and 2, it depends on the day. I've always said the best season was either the first one or the second one. I felt like the first one had an intriguing story going, but then season 2, it felt like they dropped the ball with Andy, despite the fact that she was literally the main character of season 1. Yes, I know Sisters is an ensemble cast, but if you look at season 1, it was Andy's story. It was Andy's story. Then when we got to season 2, it felt like all the other characters got to play, a bigger role in the overall show. And then, of course, we had the fateful introduction of Fatima meeting Zach, and the rest is history with them. But I think for me, when I really, really think hard, I dig deep into, okay, I'm weighing, I got both shows on the opposing side of a scale. And I'm like, thinking, okay, a point for this one, a point for that one, which one comes out on top? I would have to say season 1 would probably win for me, but I'm going to talk about why. I think the title of this video might be a bit, well, if you don't like it, if you think it's boring, then why do you watch it? Hold the phone. The topic is when I got bored with Sisters. But then, over time, I slowly got reinterested in the series. But overall, it's been boring since season 3, give or take. But I feel like there's been a sense of rejuvenation within me as an individual fan over the past couple of weeks, because for the first time in a while, recent events in the show have made me go, okay, I need to go back and rewatch this, episode or this scene. For me, season 2, while great, because like I said, season 1 and 2, it depends on the day which one is my favorite. Season 2, unfortunately, opened my eyes to the fact that, oh, wow, so this is what Tyler's doing. Because when I think back to when these episodes originally aired, they came on when the Haves and the Have-Nots was in its final couple of seasons. And by that point in the series, we were well past like the episode 120 something mark. And this was at the time where I had branched out on my channel, because remember, for a couple of years, it was just Haves and Have-Nots, and that was it. And fans were like, hey, man, you need to watch If Loving You Was Wrong. You need to watch Greenleaf. And I'm like, nah, I'm good with the Haves. And like I said before, who knows how big the channel, excuse me, who knows how big the channel would be now if I would have started implementing, those strategies by reviewing other Tyler Perry shows rather than just the Haves and the Have-Nots. But hey, don't cry over spilt milk. Channel's growing constantly. We're doing well, and just got to focus on that. But because I eventually branched out, because remember, I feel like I forgot the season. Maybe it was like season 5 or whatever, but I know that after either a mid-season or season finale. For the first time ever, the haves and the have-nots went on a 6-month hiatus. I was like, wait, what? 6 months? 6 months? And during that time, like, man, I gotta do something, because I gotta make ad revenue. I gotta make money. So I started watching other shows, enter Ambitions, enter If Loving You Is Wrong, Greenleaf, and other, programs. And then I was like, you know what? Watching non-Tyler Perry shows, I'm seeing a lot of the writing flaws in the haves and the have-nots. And I remember saying specifically before season 6 aired, I was like, look, I've had like half a year to step outside the Tyler Perry, bubble. And I've seen what great, incredible writing looks like. So when the show comes back, the gloves are off. And I remember a good number of people like, yo, man, hey, I'm unsubscribing. I remember it used to be fun and energetic, but now it's like you're, just, it doesn't feel fun anymore. And I'm like, well, that's because, I had a taste of what good quality writing is like, and I'm not seeing that in the haves and the have-nots anymore. And it's true, because during those later seasons, it just got bad. I mean, I never was an Office fan, but there are a number of like notable popular series where fans will tell you, hey, you ought to watch this show, but the first season is a little iffy, but once you get to season 2, it's good. Or, hey man, the first 3 seasons of this show was great, but that final 4 season, we kind of act like it didn't happen. The haves and the have-nots. The writing was stale. The characters were redundant. Justin, Wyatt, the list goes on. The characters were just so one note. It's like you could literally tell what they were going to say when they showed up on screen. Like Woody from Toy Story, you have the drawstring on this back, you pull, and then it says the same lines over and over again. So when it came to the Sisters in the Oval, basically, the era of the BET Viacom shows, when Sisters got to season 2, I could tell from the first couple episodes, I'm like, oh wow, Tyler's doing what he's doing with the haves and the have-nots here. See, the haves and the have-nots had a few great the first couple seasons were great. Then after that, it was good. But then after that, there was the decline of, oh wow. Like, I think season 5 was arguably that turning point where after that, you could just tell there really wasn't that much effort put into it anymore. It was a hit show regardless. So there wasn't that like, it was like, what's that expression? It didn't feel like Tyler put his foot in it anymore in terms of like the writing and the quality. It's like he's doing all these other shows. So, the haves and the have-nots just didn't really do it for a lot of fans in those later seasons. That was the point where fans were like, originally it's like, oh man, you have to watch every single episode. But then eventually it got to the point where it's like, I could skip like half a season and not miss anything at all. So with Sisters, I noticed something really weird. I'm like, okay, we're in season 2, and then with everything that happened with Gary in season 1, and then the FBI and everything, Andy's still crying over this guy and still wanting to be with him. That doesn't make sense. Sabrina, after everything that went down with Calvin and his tendencies, his wardrobe and whatnot, you're still considering giving him a shot? Danny and Preston, remember, they were Zatima before Zatima was a thing, and I didn't mind it, because I remember season 1 not really being a Danny fan until towards the end of season 1, and then when we got to like season 2, I really loved the character. She was my favorite sister, and then of course, unfortunately Tyler screwed the pooch with that couple towards the end of the season. Karen, she chose Aaron, and she was actually changing for the better. Andy, on the other hand, I remember like, as season 2 went on, I hated her character more and more each week. She became a complete asshole. She would just go around asking all these various people for advice. Karen, Paris's mother, Miss Irene, gave her solid advice, but then she'd go right back to Gary every single time. And it's like, what is the point? What is the flipping point? So that's when I thought, this is awful, because the haves and the have-nots had a great run aside from those last few seasons when it fell off. Sisters, you just got season 2, and I can already tell a lot of the same writing, the bad habits of the writing from like the haves and the have-nots was bleeding into these new shows. And I mean, these new shows that just had I think season 1 was like 25 episodes. We're at like episode 26, 27, and I can already tell, oh man, we're just stuck with these characters as they are now. And then season 3 really solidified it, because remember how I loathed the season 2 finale, because season 3 was just like, I mean, season 2 finale felt like a complete reset. Any sort of development any of the characters had was completely undone. And then season 3 was like the reset button. I'm like, oh crap. And then Zach and Fatima, you know, that's when they took over. From then on, it's like Sistas became Zatima in season 3 onward. But now I'm finally invested in other characters for a change, which is like, wow, it only took like, 100 plus episodes, but I actually give a crap about non-Zatima characters again. But yeah, that's when I became bored with the series. And then, of course, you know, Zach and Fatima rejuvenated my interest. But I keep saying, I'm like, season 3 was the beginning. That was the point where everybody said the same thing. I only watched because of Zach and Fatima. And for good reason. Everybody else was stuck in the same rut. Andy, Gary, Karen chasing after Zach, Aaron being a simp, Sabrina, Calvin. It's just no. But now things are finally looking like they're heating up, and season 7 is really going to shake up, you know, the usual formula. So, yeah, I hope that the final episodes of season 6 give me something to, you know, cheer for. And then as we go into season 7, I just hope things get better and better. But let me know. A lot of people have said they've quit watching the show. They only tune into like me, Ashley Miller, I can't think of another YouTuber off the top of my head, but there are other different YouTubers who cover Sisters. So they check those content creators out as well. But yeah, there have been people who say, you know what, I quit watching the show. I just tune into what commentators have to say, and that's about it. So at what point in Sisters did you feel like you got bored with the series, but then maybe you saw something that brought you back into it? I mean, there are people who say, I just quit watching the show completely and I just watched Zatima. So let's talk about it in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.